The envelope slid across the white tablecloth like a verdict. $50,000. That was how much Daniel Ashford's parents believed I was worth if I agreed to disappear before their son ruined his future by marrying me. Charles Ashford kept one manicured finger on the envelope as if he were holding down a dangerous animal. "Natalie," he said, soft enough to pretend kindness. "This is not personal. It is practical." Whenever someone says it is not personal, they are usually preparing to make it very personal. Across the table, my fiancé stared down at his water glass. The man who proposed to me under a rain-soaked oak tree in Tennessee. The man who said he loved my discipline, my calm, my old truck, my quiet way of moving through the world. The man who was now sitting silently while his father tried to buy me out of his life. "You are a sweet girl," she said. "But Daniel is on the edge of something important. Senior executive track. Real influence. Real responsibility. A reserve officer with an old pickup and uncertain finances will create imbalance." My Ford F-150 was parked outside the restaurant, dented bumper shining under the rain. My boots were scuffed. My hair was tied back without effort. I had come straight from an Army Reserve drill weekend, still carrying the faint smell of diesel and cold air. To them, that was the entire story. Practical woman, military reservist, probably careful with coupons, probably impressed by expensive rooms. They had no idea the company Daniel worked for belonged to me. Meridian Freight Systems was mine. The senior executive track his parents worshipped? It crossed my desk. Every promotion above regional director required my signature. Charles tapped the envelope. $50,000 is generous for someone in your position. My position? I almost laughed. Instead, I looked at Daniel's hands. He still wore the watch I had given him after his first big Meridian presentation. That morning, I had tied his tie in my kitchen and told him confidence was not noise, it was preparation. He had kissed my forehead and said, "You always know how to steady me." Now he sat between me and the people humiliating me, and he could not steady anything. Not me, not himself, not the truth. And Daniel said nothing. That was the part that hurt. Charles leaned back. "We are not asking you to be ashamed. We are asking you to be realistic." I picked up the envelope. Daniel finally looked up. Relief flickered across his face. And that almost broke my heart. He thought I was accepting it. He thought the woman he loved could be bought. And part of him was relieved, because it meant he would not have to choose. Inside was the check, a separation agreement, a non-disclosure clause, and a statement saying I understood that continuing a relationship with Daniel Ashford could damage his professional prospects. I read every line, then placed the papers back on the table. "I need to ask one question," I said. Elaine folded her hands. "Of course." I turned to Daniel. "Is this your decision too?" The room changed, not loudly. No glass broke. But the air shifted like a storm crossing open land. Daniel swallowed. "Natalie, I didn't know they were bringing papers." "That is not what I asked." Charles frowned. Daniel is trying to avoid unnecessary conflict. I kept my eyes on my fiancé. "Is this your decision too?" Daniel's mouth opened, closed. Then he looked at his mother. That was my answer. I felt it move through me, cold and clean. "I see," I said. Daniel reached for my hand under the table. I pulled back. "Natalie, please. I was trying to keep everyone calm." "No," I said. "You were trying to keep everyone comfortable." Charles sighed. "Miss Sloane, This emotional display is exactly why intervention was necessary. Miss Sloan. He had used my full name earlier, when reading the legal packet. Natalie Sloan, 39, Army Reserve Logistics Officer, no visible family wealth, owner of a depreciating truck. That was what their investigator had found. Not enough. I took a black business card from the inside pocket of my jacket and placed it beside the check. Meridian Freight Systems. Natalie Sloan, Founder and Chief Executive Officer. The room went still. Elaine blinked at it. Charles frowned. Daniel looked as if someone had quietly removed the floor beneath him. Charles picked up the card. What is this? My actual position. He gave a dry laugh. You expect us to believe you own Meridian Freight Systems? I do not expect anything from you anymore. Elaine's voice thinned. Daniel, what is going on? Daniel barely spoke. She's the CEO. No, Charles snapped. The CEO is N. Sloan. I raised one eyebrow. Yes. He stared at the initials as if they had betrayed him personally. Before anyone recovered, my phone vibrated. Victor Hale, chairman of Meridian's board. I had texted him 10 minutes earlier while Charles was explaining how I would become a burden to Daniel's career. I answered on speaker. Victor. Natalie, he said, calm and clear. You asked me to confirm whether Daniel Ashford's promotion review is still scheduled for Monday. Charles turned pale. Daniel closed his eyes. Yes, I said. It was... Victor continued. Per your request, all senior advancement discussions involving Mr. Ashford have been paused pending leadership review. Elaine gripped the tablecloth. Charles found his voice. This is outrageous. Victor paused. Who is speaking? Charles Ashford, I said. Daniel's father. Another pause. Then Victor said, Mr. Ashford, I would advise caution. You are speaking in the presence of the majority owner of the company that signs your son's paychecks. The silence afterward was beautiful in the cruelest way. I thanked Victor and ended the call. Charles stared at the check as if it had become poisonous. Elaine's lips parted, but no sound came out. Daniel looked at me with panic, regret, and grief. Natalie, he said, I can explain. You do not need to. I didn't know they would go this far. Daniel, they went exactly as far as you allowed. He flinched. Good. Some sentences are supposed to leave a mark. Elaine recovered first. We clearly misunderstood certain details. No, I said. You understood exactly what you wanted to understand. You presented yourself modestly. I presented myself honestly. You let us believe. I let you speak. That landed hard because it was the truth. I had let them speak. Charles had chosen control. Elaine had chosen class cruelty wrapped in perfume. Daniel had chosen silence, and I had chosen to listen. Charles tried to recover the shape of power. This does not change Daniel's career concerns. Daniel's career is not in danger because of me, I said. It is in question because leadership requires a spine. Then I removed the engagement ring from my finger. I placed the ring beside the torn legal packet and the check. Daniel inhaled sharply. Natalie, don't. I am not ending this because your parents insulted me. His eyes filled. I am ending this because you let them. Elaine gasped. Charles muttered, This is absurd. I ignored him. Neutral is a decision, Daniel. Silence is a decision. Looking down at your glass is a decision. And every decision has consequences. He whispered, I was trying not to make it worse. I leaned closer. You made it worse for me so it could stay easier for you. That was the moment he truly understood. Not the card, not the call, not the paused promotion. That sentence. His face changed in a way money cannot fix. I stood. Charles rose too. Natalie, be reasonable. I was reasonable for 45 minutes, I said. I let you question my background, my finances, my service, my character, and my place in your son's life. I let you put a price on my absence because I wanted to know whether the man beside me would recognize dishonor before I had to name it. Daniel covered his face. He didn't, I said. I picked up the check, tore it once down the middle, then again, and set the pieces beside my ring. Keep your money, I said. You may need it for therapy. I walked out before anyone could follow. Outside, the evening had turned cold. Rain had stopped, but the sidewalk still shone under the streetlights. My old F-150 sat at the curb, Army Reserve decal half peeled from the back window. I stood beside it and finally let my hands shake. Inside that restaurant, I had been calm because calm was necessary. Outside, alone. I was a woman who had just returned a ring to the man she still loved. I cried so hard I could not put the key in the ignition. Not because of Charles and Elaine. They were easy to understand. I cried because Daniel had looked down. I turned the paper over and wrote one sentence on the back. Do not confuse being chosen with being defended. The next morning, I went to work. That is what disciplined people do when their hearts are falling apart. They keep appointments, they answer emails, they sign reports. They do not bleed on employees who did not wound them. At noon, I saw Daniel's name in a promotion packet and felt the room tilt. Victor watched me from across the conference table. You do not have to review that today. Yes, I said. I do. Daniel's file was strong. He was intelligent, diligent, strategic, respected by his team. He had earned consideration. I wrote a note in the file. Advancement paused. Candidate demonstrates operational skill, but requires demonstrated growth in independent judgment, ethical courage, and conflict ownership. The words sounded professional. They meant, you let your parents try to buy me. 2 days passed, then 3. Daniel called 26 times. I did not answer. He texted, please let me explain. I did not respond. Then, I know I failed you. I read it 3 times, not because it fixed anything, because it was the first true sentence he had sent. On the 4th day, another message came. I withdrew from the advancement review, not from the company, from the promotion track. I do not want anything I was too weak to deserve. I put the phone down and walked outside into the cold. For the first time since the restaurant, I breathed all the way in. Not relief, not forgiveness, just the absence of another disappointment. A week later, Daniel requested a meeting through Human Resources. Not with me as his former fiancé, with me as CEO. I agreed, with Victor and HR present. Daniel entered the conference room in a navy suit. No family watch, no polished arrogance. He looked like a man who had not slept much and had finally met himself in a place without mirrors. He did not sit until I told him to. Thank you for seeing me, he said. This is a professional meeting. I understand. He placed a folder on the table. I am withdrawing from senior track consideration for the year. I have also requested transfer from strategic development to field operations. That surprised me. Why? Because I built too much of my identity on proximity to power. My parents taught me to want rooms I had not earned. I need to learn the company from the ground instead of trying to rise through it on Polish. Then he added, I also submitted a conflict disclosure regarding my father's attempted intervention in my personal relationship with the CEO. Victor's eyebrows lifted. A disclosure like that would follow him. Daniel knew it. I am not asking for protection, he said. I am asking for a record that tells the truth. I studied his face. What do you want from me? I asked. Nothing. I almost did not believe him. I want to apologize once, properly, and then I will leave you alone unless business requires contact. Victor looked at me. I gave the smallest nod. Daniel turned fully toward me. I thought avoiding conflict made me good. He said, I thought keeping people calm was maturity. I thought if I sat still long enough, the moment would pass and nobody would have to bleed. His voice shook. But you were bleeding, right in front of me, and I called my cowardice peace. The room went quiet. I let my parents reduce you because standing up to them would have cost me the version of myself they approved of. I chose that approval over your dignity. There is no explanation that makes that better. He forced himself to keep looking at me. I am sorry, Natalie, not because you turned out to be powerful. I am sorry because I should have defended you when I thought you had nothing. That sentence reached a place in me I had been trying to lock. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But recognition. Thank you for saying that, I said. His eyes shone. He nodded, gathered his folder, and left. For 2 months, Daniel did exactly what he said he would do. No romantic messages, no flowers, no midnight apologies. He transferred to field operations and learned the company from the ground. Distribution yards, driver safety, night loading, damaged freight, weather delays, and supervisors who did not care about his last name. I heard things because companies talk. He cleaned a loading dock bathroom when the night crew was short. He apologized to a dispatcher he had once dismissed. He moved out of the condo his parents helped fund and rented a 1-bedroom apartment near a rail yard. He returned the watch I had given him with a note. I cannot wear a gift from someone I failed until I become someone who would not fail her again. I kept the note, not the watch. Meanwhile, Charles and Elaine did what people like them do when control fails. They blamed me, threatened legal letters, then tried Daniel. He finally met them in his father's study and said the sentence he should have found in the restaurant. No, you taught me honor and then punished me when honor required disagreeing with you. He told them they had exposed his character, not protected his future. If they contacted me again, he would cut ties completely. Elaine cried. Charles raged. Daniel left anyway. That mattered. Not because it fixed the past, because growth that costs nothing is usually just performance. He had finally paid something. Spring came slowly. Tennessee fields turned green. Meridian expanded disaster response contracts along the Gulf. I threw myself into work, which is not the same as healing but can keep the house standing until healing arrives. In late April, I visited a Meridian terminal outside Louisville after a flood response exercise. It was supposed to be routine: walk the floor, meet supervisors, leave before lunch. Then I saw Daniel in the yard. He was not in a suit. He wore steel-toed boots, a reflective vest, work gloves, and rainwater on his sleeves. He was helping a driver secure a shifted load while a supervisor barked instructions over wind. He looked up and saw me. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he nodded once. Professional, respectful, no claim on me, no performance. I nodded back. Later, as I left, I found an envelope tucked under my windshield wiper. Inside was one page. Natalie, you once told me confidence was not noise. It was preparation. I spent my life preparing for rooms, not for responsibility. I do not expect another chance. I only want you to know that the worst moment of my life was not losing you. It was seeing that I had become the kind of man who could watch someone I loved be humiliated and call it restraint. I am working on that man. Daniel, I folded the letter and placed it in the glove compartment. Not close to my heart, not in the trash. Some truths deserve a middle place while you decide what they mean. 2 weeks later, I ran into Elaine at a charity breakfast in Nashville. She looked smaller without a private dining room around her. I owe you an apology, she said. I waited. I thought you were beneath my son. There it was. Not elegant, not softened, better. I was wrong. Yes. Her eyes filled. The worst part was that we expected you to understand your place. I said nothing. That is ugly, she whispered. Yes. I am trying not to be that woman. I believe that she believed it. That is not the same as trust. But it was something. Charles did not apologize. Men like Charles often experience apology as a kind of death, but he stopped interfering. Sometimes silence is cowardice. Sometimes it is the first sign that a controlling man has finally run out of commands. By June, Daniel had finished 3 months in field operations. His supervisors submitted reports. Good worker, listens more, no entitlement, needs time. That last line made me smile despite myself. Needs time. So did I. One evening, I found Daniel waiting outside the Franklin Community Center after a Veterans Logistics fundraiser. He stood near the edge of the parking lot, hands visible, posture careful. I'm not here to ask you to take me back, he said. Good. I told my parents I won't attend family functions where people are discussed like assets. Dad threatened to disinherit me. And I told him inheritance was a strange price for self-respect. That sentence settled between us. It sounded earned. Why are you telling me? I asked. Because you once asked whether it was my decision too. That night, my silence answered yes. I needed at least one action to answer differently. There he was. Not fixed, not absolved, but standing. Finally, I don't know what I want, I said. I know. I don't know if I can trust you. I know. I don't know if love is enough. It wasn't, he said. That was the right answer. Not romantic, not easy, true. For once, he did not rush to fill the silence. After a long moment, I said, Coffee? Next week? Public place? No promises? His eyes changed. Not victory. Gratitude. I am not starting over, I said. I know. I am starting from evidence. He nodded. That is fair. We did have coffee, then harder conversations, then quiet months where he showed up consistently without demanding reward for basic decency. I did not put the ring back on for a long time. When I eventually considered it, it was not because he begged. It was because the man in front of me had become someone who understood that love without courage becomes another form of abandonment. And even then, I told him, if I ever see you choose silence over my dignity again, I will not need a second conversation. He said, I know. And I believed him. Not blindly, not completely, but enough to continue. People later asked whether I regretted letting the restaurant go as far as it did. I do not. You cannot negotiate with a room until you know who is in it. Charles thought power was a check. Elaine thought power was class. Daniel thought power was avoiding conflict. I knew power was patience. 45 minutes of listening. 2 minutes of truth. 1 ring placed beside a torn check. Final justice was not pausing Daniel's promotion. It was not watching Charles Ashford realize he had tried to buy the woman who owned the company his son worked for. It was not Elaine learning that modesty is not weakness. It was not even Daniel finally standing up to the parents who had trained him to confuse approval with honor. Final justice was the moment I stopped hoping someone would defend me before I was revealed as powerful. My name is Natalie Sloan. I drive an old Ford F-150. I wear scuffed boots. I serve in the Army Reserve. And I built a freight company that moves through 14 states because I learned early that the most important cargo is not always the most visible. Sometimes it is medicine. Sometimes it is food. Sometimes it is proof. And sometimes it is your own worth, carried quietly for years, until the people who underestimated you finally realized they were never negotiating with weakness. They were sitting across from command.